Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 21. I don't think I reveal too many secrets if I tell you that today, we will mostly concern ourselves with the farm. However, the fact that we still have the iron mine and processing under constructions, as well as an active track layer running around, it will take the entire episode to finish it completely. We will manage to start delivering food to the town warehouse, but that will be pretty much the last thing we do in this video. Since there will be a lot of waiting around, be prepared for a lot of trees and bushes, mostly around the newly built housing blocks. My first thought was to make use of these dumpers, maybe in the construction offices. But we already have enough, so I just let them sit idle for now. Obviously, the main focus is the farm. The sooner we finish it, the sooner we can start weaning ourselves off of foreign imports. And I finally remembered to rename Karbunov to Udograd. Sorry it took me so long. At this point, the coal supply is pretty stable. What we need more of these days is iron. And that side of the equation is already coming along nicely, and won't be long before we can start moving workers there. I'm really happy with this new pathfinding AI for the track layers. Allowing them to turn around was a huge boost to their utility, and not having to build all sorts of turnarounds is a big plus in my book. Right now, the only thing I don't like about this train display are the trees. They are way too unevenly placed. We have two choices. Delete them, and replant them an episode later, or fill in the empty spaces behind them, so the flaws become less obvious. Personally, I'm leaning toward filling in the background. Other than that, it's looking okay. There were ideas suggested, that maybe we should turn this place into a small tourist district. I'm not opposed to the idea, but it will require some planning of course. Since it's outside the city, we will need to treat it as any other industry out of town, so it will require a commuter line. Anyways, there is a small shortage of childcare capacity in the new houses, so a new kindergarten is in order. I really need to start taking advantage of the different skins available for these buildings made by Rob. And here we go. Be prepared to see a lot of this in the video today. Obviously I won't spend every second planting trees and bushes, but since we are waiting around, this seemed like a good way to spend the time. As usual, I try to use poplar trees where they won't be obscuring the view of windows, like the completely blank sides of these housing blocks. There was a pretty big area we needed to fill up, and using greenery only didn't seem like the way to go. We have a lot of service buildings at our disposal, so let's take advantage of them. There is not a shortage of sports facilities nearby, but such wide open spaces were crying out for some outdoor activities. We already have a football pitch in the city. If I build another one, I think it should be at the other end of the island, and not this close. I'm still tickled by how small the vanilla football field is. Other buildings got a makeover as the game got updated, so maybe this one will also get one in the future. Anyways, the final choice fell on a pair of tennis courts. I would prefer if both of the footpath connections were active, so let's try this again. That's better. Poplars would be a bit much, and beech trees would be way too dense. Acacia trees should do the trick. I do hope the devs add more foliage in the future. Obviously, we saw palm trees in the desert biome screenshots in one of the recent dev blog entries, so I really hope those will be available on all maps, not just in dry regions. Anyways, time for some beech trees. They have a big, dense crown, so I like to use them sparingly. And since I don't want to block the view from the windows, the areas in front of those will be filled with bushes instead. And they are a great filler between trees as well. Nice, the main farm building is complete. This is where the tractors and harvesters will be parked when they are not needed. We still need the other buildings to be built, including the distribution offices, which I'm yet to place. Anyways, before I buy the farming equipment, let's make sure there's fuel available. Now about those distribution offices. We will need those to pick up the harvest from the fields. For such a small operation, a single one would be enough, but just in case we need to expand, maybe having two of them wouldn't hurt. It was really lucky that this space was big enough to accommodate both of them. The first fuel distribution office was really close to being full at this point, so it was time to start preparing to use the second one. This pretty much only meant that we needed to buy the tankers, and it was ready to receive orders. By the way, I did just catch myself speaking in past tense. I think up to this point, I've been using present tense whenever I described what was happening on screen. But, ever since I started treating my Dwarf Fortress series as a sort of storytelling device, I've been using past tense more and more. I don't think it would make too much of a difference if I started using past tense in these videos too. It should allow me to condition myself to use it in all my commentaries. I'm sure I will still use them interchangeably for a while. Speaking of Dwarf Fortress, oh boy, those videos take a long time to make. Here, I'm so used to the cadence and rhythm, and at this point it only takes me about a day to go from recording, to editing, to uploading, all the way to scheduling the video on YouTube. But the DF videos are a whole other beast. Recording obviously only takes an hour, but adding the commentary takes at least 2 days. Trying to describe the game mechanics in story form needs way more thought than just describing what I'm doing at the moment, and that the British voice I use for that series is way too slow by default, so I need to speed up every individual clip by about 10%, which also managed to lengthen the process. Right now, the number of viewers is way less than this series, but that was to be expected. I am heartened by the fact that I see new subscribers after every episode though. When I had that period between the 2 Soviet Republic seasons, when I was using live commentary, there were days when the change in subscribers was a net negative. It's so nice to see this new series finding its own audience. Anyways, back to the matters at hand. The farm is coming along nicely, and the main building already managed to auto-assign the fields to itself. Having these construction sites in the city will eat into the number of workers going to the out-of-town workplaces for a bit, but they are small projects, so they won't take long. Especially with the materials being delivered so quickly. There. Both tennis courts will be done in a couple days' time. Just like that. It's a bit annoying that I keep placing down the trees and bushes, and notice a patch of grass poking through some asphalt, and when removing it, I accidentally get rid of the new foliage as well. When that happens, nothing can be planted in those places until the game is reloaded, but I've been beating this dead horse for quite a while now. As for our loans, we are doing quite well. Ever since we consolidated all those different installments, our monthly payments got lowered by about 10,000 rubles, which is not a negligible amount. And our citizens are also doing well. The only concerning thing right now is the fact that the new houses are completely full already, and the number of young adults living with their parents is increasing again. We need more housing, that's for sure. Also, the internal commuter line in Estergrad is overloaded again. Maybe we should add another bus to the line. Yeah, we have quite a few unemployed people in these houses. They need a way to get to the main bus station. This should help out a little. Since we need a new apartment block, choosing a place for it was a bit tricky. If we were to expand deeper into the island, then we would need to build out a whole new set of services. Given our severe shortage of construction materials, it wasn't the right time for that. Also, with the increase in population, it was time to reset some of the buildings, where we decreased the number of workers, back when the city was much smaller. I'm sure I missed most of them, since the text file where I kept my old to-do list was lost, when I reinstalled Windows after the new CPU and motherboard was put together. I still kept a few of these buildings at a lower capacity. The secret police, for example, I don't think we really need 30 college graduates there right now. Maybe when the island is completely full, but not at the moment. At this point, I've given up on ever using this space for anything, so I just filled it in with some trees and bushes. If anything suitable comes up, then we can still do it, but it's been sitting empty for so long. See? I told you I'll be doing a lot of planning in this episode. The food factory is almost finished. Of course, it won't do any good without the crops being available. To prepare for that, maybe it's time we bought the farming machinery. We have 12 parking spaces, so 6 tractors and 6 combine harvesters should do the trick. And that was quite an expensive investment. If all goes well, we should see it pay off in a couple years. And the tractors are off. Seeing the first farm field being sown is always a big moment in every republic's history. We are almost ready to start using the buildings in Faragorod. Doing so will help us get rid of our dependence on foreign iron. At this point, I was a bit worried about our finances. We only had 55,000 rubles available, so I took out a loan of 400k. Thankfully, it will turn out to be unnecessary. Nice, the distribution offices are also coming along nicely, and at this rate, they will be finished before the grain silo. With 200 adults waiting for apartments, it was time to do something about it. As I've said, expanding deeper into the island wasn't really feasible. But maybe we could take advantage of this land behind the first houses. Since I'm so averse to building on sloped ground, I ended up getting rid of that gentle incline. Only needed to smooth out the drop where the footpaths would change elevation, and we're in business. Since this apartment was going to be next to the brown ones, it had to match. Far enough apart that they won't crowd each other out, but close enough that it should be able to reach the necessary services. We weren't in a hurry, so low priority was enough. Still managed to get built before the episode was over though. To ensure proper coverage, we should add the footpaths on the other side too. Sadly, this meant that we had to replace what we had there. Yeah. I was overzealous with the remove tool. Oh well, it was only a couple tons of gravel at most, so it was a cheap mistake. I doubt this place in between will be used for anything other than maybe a small park, so turning it back into a gentle slope was okay in my book. We managed to make 40,000 rubles since we took out that last loan. Time to repay it, before it accrues too much interest. And one of the farm DOs is finished. There was no point buying the trucks at that point, the first harvest wasn't ready yet. But we could get started on adding the assignments. We had 13 fields to work with, so those will be designated as pickup points. Even the second one got built. Let's do the same again. Now we just need the grain silo and the warehouse, and this place is good to go. The traffic in the bus station is getting real crowded. There is an easy fix, we just need to give priority to the driveway at the intersection. I might do that one day, but not today. Sometimes, I like to wait and see if a situation is temporary or not, and only take action if it persists. With most of the buildings finished in Faragorod, we might as well start moving people there. Since we have too many workers at the steel mill, we could divert one of those buses. But before I got to that, I just had to deal with some of the names and defunct lines in the list. So, one of the Satsumograd buses will go to Faragorod instead. The list looks good, so that's pretty much it. This should automatically generate a new line, leaving the original one unaffected. I don't think I mentioned, but I did disable settling into this new apartment block for now. As usual, we need to make sure people can reach what they need to reach before we commit. For example, this one have most of the services in walking distance, except for healthcare. We will need to build a new clinic somewhere nearby. Both of the current facilities are out of reach. With the grain silo completed, we could add it to the farm DOs, completing the assignments. Ever since that forestry mishap near the chemical plant in the last series, I'm a bit paranoid about having enough trees to cut down. As usual, I cannot go on without mentioning that I really wish the woodcutting station would replant trees that it cuts down. If that was how it worked, we wouldn't need to have such a dense forest near it, and we could get away with something a bit more natural looking. Speaking of trees, I almost forgot to plant the usual windbreaker trees at the farm. And that should do it. And if we take a look at the farm fields, they appear to be pretty close to harvest time already. We should see the combines leave the farm parking lot any day now. Hey, the town distribution branch on the rail network is finished. One step closer to the finish line. And there goes the first harvester. What a glorious day for the Republic. Pretty easy choice for a video thumbnail. This meant that it was time to buy the trucks to move the crops from the fields to the silo. I was not ready to do any more than that though. First, I wanted to see if this was enough to satisfy the food requirements of Estergrad. When that was 100% assured, then I would be happy to start moving crops to the fabric factory as well. At this point, the only thing missing were the workers. Oh, and the fuel for the distribution offices, of course. Even with one bus, the supply of iron in the steel mill is looking better and better. We are not ready to stop importing just yet, but we're getting there. Anyways, with grain waiting in the silo, it was time to finally start moving workers to the food factory. I did make a mistake, and forgot to restrict the workplace destination at the farm bus stop. In the next episode, we will need to assign the food factory to it, as well as some of the nearby fields, but give the factory 100% priority. That will ensure that every worker who gets off at that stop will go to the factory first, and only go to work in the fields if that place is completely full. But with 4 buses, we are nowhere near that kind of employment numbers. Alright, only a matter of time before we have fresh bread ready to be delivered to the town warehouse. Maybe we can afford to have one more bus reassigned from Satsumograd to Faragorod. And that notification told us that the second iron processing facility was completed. And would you look at that, we have fresh bread. Time to set up the delivery line. But this is likely a temporary one. If we can go without adding more farm fields, then we can just use the 2 farm DOs for this job, and also to keep the fabric factories full of crops. But only time will tell. For now, let's just get 2 covered hull trucks, and tell them to move the bread from the farm to the town. To be able to afford them, we did need to take out that $400K loan again, unfortunately. But with our current cash flow, it shouldn't take long before we can repay it again. Let me just rename some of the last remaining lines, and let's put this episode to rest. That should do it. So, with that out of the way, we can hopefully stop importing food, or at the very least, lower the amount we buy. Since food is our most expensive import currently, anything that lowers that amount is most welcome. And as usual, I forgot to rename the old track layer, but at least I remembered to do it for Udegrad. Apart from monitoring our new food production, we now need to keep an eye on the iron as well. As for the next episode, I really wanted to start working on that scenic train route along the river today, but the farm made me change the plan. But now that it's done, we can finally start working on that. It will need a bit of terrain manipulation, but with the free construction offices, it will be a breeze. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then leaving a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. If you are more in the donating mood, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description, where you can buy me a glass of water. I don't really drink coffee. Thank you for your support, and until next time, I will see you later.